the scientist.
Suffice it that the blood of 1,000 men and women was spilled within these walls. Limbs twisted and broken. Eyes gouged from bloody sockets. Flesh burned black.
Please. You'll wait for death. In death, there are no accidents, no coincidences, no mishaps, and no escapes. What you have to realize is that we're all just a mouse that a cat has by the tail.
The number you have reached, 911, has been changed to a non-published number.
How you doing, Tom?
Okay, thank you for the chance to talk.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming on. You know, I'm really. I noticed from your website that you've been eating up the airwaves yourself quite a bit on some of these other shows.
Yeah, we had a book with Paul Dixon came out last year called The Bonus Army.
That's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Is that what are you writing right now?
Actually, I'm working right now on a book about the loyalists who were fought in the American Revolution.
Okay, great. That's
Interesting.
Interesting stuff. You've got a lot of, you know, like I said, there's a lot of stuff that I see on your site that you've been doing this quite a while.
Yeah. No, I've been working on journalism all my life, and I went from newspapers to magazines and into books, and basically what I try to do is find a story that is true but has somehow missed in the grand story of history, and certainly that's what happened with the Exorcist, because the fact that it was based on a real exorcism, I think, kind of got lost in the hoopla about the movie, and I just came across a few pieces of information that led me to the priest who was still around, who had helped in the exorcism of the boy. It was a boy in reality, not a girl, as is in the movie.
You know, they call him Robbie in the movie, and I know they use the R in the diary excerpts that I've read. How did you meet these people? What got you interested in first doing this story, and how did you go about doing your research to get there and find all these people?
Well, I found out that there were three Jesuits involved primarily in the exorcism. Actually, there were two exorcisms, but we can get to that later. But
okay.
Of the three Jesuits, one was still alive when I started looking into the story. He had been not yet ordained. It's what the Jesuits call a scholastic, and he had been brought along as muscle because he was a young guy, and they felt they could hold the boy down if the boy got violent. And I found him, and I tracked him down. He was kind of reluctant to talk, and then it turned out that I had gone to a Jesuit school. He was a Jesuit, and we were able to talk more or less as people who at least knew a few things about the situation in regards to exorcism.
Okay.
And he, so we had a little chat on the phone, and we talked, and finally I said, "Oh my God!" I looked at, and I realized I was calling him on Halloween, with absolutely no thought of it, because I had been trying to track him down for several weeks, and finally I had cracked into where he was and got the phone number, and then I realized it was Halloween. And so he took out of that, and then he revealed to me that he had a copy of the diary that the exorcist had kept during the exorcism, and he asked me if I wanted a copy of it, and that's the way it got started.
Huh.
So he sent me a copy of the diary, and I was able to verify it in various ways, and that was the basis for my book.
Now, this diary, is this reprinted in its full form, or did you edit any of that out for size?
What happened was, in the first edition of the book, the publishers were a little afraid of who owned the diary, up to the point where they thought perhaps the Catholic Church owned it in some strange way. And I assured them that I had possession of it, had been given possession of it by, how I'd use that word, by one of the priests who had been there. And finally, when a new edition came out, the current edition, I was able to use the full text. So the full text is in the current edition of the book.
Okay, that's great. Now I've got
The thing that's missing is there was some identifying material in the front of the diary, which I don't use because I've never done anything to identify the person who was the victim.
Oh,
the demoniac, they call him.
No. Have you ever? Did you ever meet the?
No, I knew who he was, and I wrote 2 letters to him, and asked if I could perhaps interview him, and even interview him with one of the priests, with the priest whom I knew present, and he declined, and he never answered, either letter, and I felt any more letters would be harassment, so I just let it go.
I can understand that.
Yeah, fair enough.
If you've been through a situation like that, I'm sure it's something you really don't want to relive over and over again.
Right.
Now, the copy that I've got actually of your book was actually, I think it was I don't know what printing it was, but it's a paperback. It's a black
one with a still from Showtime movie on it.
No, that's
by Universe. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not the one I have. The copy that I have is actually is a black cover, and it says Possessed on. It's got a cross on it, I believe. This has been a long time since I bought this. I bought this when I was in law school.
The newest one came out about around the time that the Showtime movie came out.
Yeah, that's the one I saw at Barnes and Noble actually, and that's the one that I saw that you had added the diary excerpts. But the one I had before didn't have this diary excerpt added to it, and I just thought that was a really neat thing to include in there. The actual diary excerpts themselves. Did you actually get a chance to meet with Father Bowdern?
No, Father Bowdern was dead by the time I got started on the story. But one thing that happened with the diary, which I mentioned in the book, is I was given the diary by Father Halloran, who had been a priest, not yet a priest, but a Jesuit who had helped his 2 older colleagues with the exorcism. And when he gave it to me, it was 24 pages long. And when I got to the 24th page, I could see that it wasn't quite the end, that something more had happened, which Father Halloran had described to me, but it wasn't in the diary. So I had been interviewing other people, a lot of other people, in course of working on the book, and I found a priest who more or less acts as an advance man on exorcisms. And he had all kinds of information about exorcism in general, and I felt that he would have had the complete diary. And I said, look, I've got 24 pages. I don't know what you have, but why don't you give me, the pages that are missing? So he did, and there actually were 1.5 more pages. The 25th page talked about the way the boy came out of the experience. And the last page was an indication that the boy's parents had converted to Catholicism, and then there was one more notation that said he had been married in several years after. He was in his, 20s, and he had been married. And I thought that was kind of curious, and it turned out that Father Bowdern, who had been the exorcist, may have been the priest who married this grown-up boy and his wife, and the tradition is that they had a son and named him Michael, which is the archangel the boy felt was part of the spiritual aspect of his successful exorcism.
Huh. Now, did you how close was what do you feel about the movie? How do you feel about it?
I feel that I can't come to any conclusion. I feel I've never really felt that there was any devil involved. I've never felt I'm very leery of anything that's supernatural. But I did feel that there was something that was unexplainable. And the analogy I always use is that there's something a little bit over the horizon which we can sense but can't quite figure out. And that if you tried to explain electricity to me in the 15th century, I wouldn't know what you were talking about. And that's kind of where I put it, that it's a phenomenon that clearly happened, but we don't know all the elements involved in it.
Oh no, I understand that, but I mean, how do you feel as far as the way the movie was made after you saw the movie come out? How did you feel?
I went along with. I mean, I read the script. I worked on it a little bit, and the only thing that kind of bothered me is, in a funny way, the real story has Easter in it, in that the boy comes out of it right after Easter. In the movie, they changed it to he comes out of it right after Halloween.
Yeah, well.
So they get a little more drama out of it.
Oh, yeah,
but otherwise, it was pretty accurate. There's another one coming up. The History Channel is going to do a 2-hour show on the exorcism, in which they'll do some partial dramatization of The Exorcist. That's going to be next month.
Did they contact you for that?
Yeah, I do a bit of some of the commentary on it.
Oh wow, okay, that's great.
Very cool. If you want to talk to Tom, our numbers are 1-800-960-2289, 1-800-960-2289, or the local number is 336-996-1596. And don't forget about hopping in the chat room, making up a name, and writing in a question if you're kind of shy.
If you're shy, we'll take your questions in the chat room, guys. It's omnisoundradio1.net/chat. So, or you can go access that from our website, worldoftheunexplained.com. Tom, how has this book changed your life, if any?
Well, in a couple of ways. I was brought up Catholic, and I essentially stopped being a Catholic in my early 20s. And
don't we all? No.
But I've never really abandoned it, in the sense. I mean, it shaped it helped to shape my life. And part of my experience as a Catholic was that I went to a Jesuit school, and I learned to respect the Jesuits, and respected also their attitude toward dealing with spiritual things. They're pretty tough guys. They don't really stand still much for pietistic things. They really want to see the real McCoy. And when I was working on the book, I learned that the director, or not the director, but the author of the screenplay, who had been the author of the novel that had inspired the screenplay, William Blatty, had learned the identity of the Exorcist. In fact, it was Father Bowdern, and Blatty had gone to a Jesuit school.
Oh.
And when Blatty wrote to Father Bowdern, the Exorcist, and asked him for details, Father Bowdern said he couldn't give him any details because he was concerned about the possibility of the boy being identified.
Yeah.
And but he did say it was the real thing.
Huh.
And that always stuck in my head, that phrase.
It was the real thing.
And then but a curious thing with Father Halloran, who became a very good friend of mine, and I loved him very much. He died about 2 years ago. And he was a wonderful guy, and a guy I could talk to about a lot of things besides this. And he said he had done 2 tours in Vietnam as a chaplain. The Jesuits refused to let him go for the 3rd time because there wasn't much left to him at that point. And he said, I saw more evil in Vietnam than I ever saw in the room where that boy was. But Father Halloran also felt that he was dealing with something very real, and something that had to be fought through the exorcism. And I felt that if that's where he was, and he was right there in the room, then how can I be totally doubting about anything that had to do with it? So it's made me always unable to answer yes or no. I've never been able to say, yeah, I know it's all true and I believe it. I certainly can't say no, it's all just some sort of wall of mirrors. So
No.
I can't come down, as I said, I can't come down with a yes, yes, yes on this. Well, but I certainly can't come down with a no, no, no.
Now, was this is this priest friend of yours? If I may be mistaken, did he live in the Pinehurst area of North Carolina toward the end of his life?
Beg pardon?
Did he live in the Pinehurst area of North Carolina toward the end of his life? Am I thinking the same priest?
No, it's not the same one.
Okay, I'm thinking of somebody else that I think was involved
right.
in this thing.
Yeah, he actually, the priest you're thinking of had been a consultant and an advisor on the original Exorcist film.
Okay.
And I did know him. Also a very fine man, and a good priest. But he was not a Jesuit, and that was I got kind of thrown into the Jesuit orbit on this. One of the funny things about it is the movie makes the Jesuits in Georgetown University be the heroes, and the Jesuits in St. Louis University were actually the ones who performed the exorcism. So there was always a kind of rivalry between them. And when my book came out and it said it was the Jesuits in St. Louis, it made the Jesuits there very happy.
I'm sure.
Of course.
Well, it's so after you've examined all this, you're not sure where you stand on it. Do you personally believe, aside from whether or not you believe this actual case was real, do you personally believe that it's possible to become demonically possessed?
Oh yeah, I've talked to several psychiatrists, and they have various psychological or sort of medical or scientific explanation, not full explanations, but possible ideas that have to do with it. Nobody can solve it. Nobody can solve the whole phenomenon of people saying there's something in me that has to come out, that I'm possessed. I mean, it goes back to the beginning of time that people feel that way. But when I talk to psychiatrists on it, I usually run into people who are like me, in which they know that it's going on. They know that something like this is possible in the human psyche, but they don't know why or how it happens.
I remember reading a few years ago, and I had him on as a guest. I don't know if you're familiar with the book. It's American Exorcism, Expelling Demons in the Land of Plenty. It's a book by Professor Michael Cuneo from Fordham University.
Oh, yeah, I know yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. And he had talked about, he had sat in on, I don't know, 100, what was it, Trent, like 150 of these different exorcisms?
I think it was a astoundingly high number.
Yeah, and he went to the Pentecostals, and they were trying to exorcise the demons of alcoholism and sexual perversion, and, you name it.
Yeah.
There's a demon responsible, it seems. The Pentecostals, in my opinion, sometimes go a little bit overboard. I'm not trying to knock on them, but hopefully I'll get a call because somebody will get mad about it. It's 800-960-2289, 800-960-2289. If you're a Pentecost, give me a call.
Well, I talked to actually as a friend of mine who was a psychiatrist and had also been brought up Catholic, and he had a patient who was gravely upset by a terrible abduction that had happened to her as a child, and he was trying to reach her and see, as this was as an adult, and he put her under hypnotism, and as she described the abduction, she said that she had been bound hand and foot by her abductor, and as she spoke this under hypnosis, the welts of what would have been the welts raised by ropes on her wrists started to raise. And he mentioned that to me because he said that this would be around where he would see the possibility of things appearing on the boy's body, that our body and our minds are connected in so many complicated ways that we don't realize how the mind can reach out and do things to the body for some reason. I mean, the most fundamental thing is when we're embarrassed, we blush. Well, that means that blood, little tiny capillaries open up, and we get red in the face because of something that happened in our head, in our brain. And what happened to the boy in terms of there being signs on his chest and on his arms during the course of the exorcism is a variation on that, and so is what the psychiatrist was telling me, but he can't explain how it can happen. He also believed that in a lot of cases, in his own cases that he read, I went to a convention on abnormal psychiatry while I was working on this. He said that there is a belief that there is something inside you and that somebody else can get it out, and that's the basis for exorcism. That through no fault of my own, I've got something inside me that's driving me crazy. Maybe somebody can come and take it out. And that's what Jesus does 3 times in the New Testament. I mean, he performs exorcisms in the New Testament. And he's doing this as a great rabbi that it shows the power that he has as a divine person, or at least as a holy person.
I'm going to have to stop you right there, Tom. We've got to take a short break.
Okay.
We're going to be right back on World of the Unexplained right after this.
Give me a few minutes. Yeah, I'm doing an interview. These guys are, this is a high priority, man. This is the Larry King of internet radio right here. Jay Scott.
Every Halloween at midnight, the devil simultaneously appears in 2 places. The high plains of India and a quiet cemetery in Kansas. It's November 2nd, the Day of the Dead. 2 federal marshals report to the small town of Shinbone, Kansas, moments after a tornado warning, to transport a prisoner with no past, no identity. He is known only as Sin Jin Smith. Starring Roddy Piper, Richard Tyson, Jonathan Davis, Kevin Gage, Gary Casper, John Philbin, Billy Duffy, Charles Cyphers, and Eileen Dietz. Check out the movie that critics are calling one of 2007's most anticipated horror films by visiting www.sinjinsmith.com. That's www.sin-jinsmyth.com. St. Jin Smith is a Snapkick Productions film, written and directed by Ethan Detmeyer. Coming soon to a theater near you.
And we're back with Tom Allen. Call in 800-960-2289. That number again is 800-960-2289.
Oh, yes, or 336-996-1596. I'm sorry. Wow.
That's cool, man.
I am just so not on the ball.
Wow. Now, is this the going back to the possession or the possession case? Is this the first book that you've had made into a major motion picture like that?
I did a book a long time ago on Karen Silkwood, who was doused with plutonium in an incident that occurred in Oklahoma, and that was made into a movie.
Yeah, actually, I remember seeing that film.
Do you?
Yeah, I can't remember what the name of it was, but it was quite a long time ago.
It was a television movie.
Yeah.
It was called The Plutonium Incident.
Yeah, I remember that.
Huh. Well, making your book into a movie is what pays the big bucks. Just ask Stephen King, Dean Koontz, and all these other great writers. I'm telling you, man, that's where the money is at. It is in the film. It's in the film industry. Why did you choose to go with iUniverse for the second edition? Because if you correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that a self-publishing avenue?
No, you are. Well, it's. I hate to say you're wrong, but what happened is my book was published by Doubleday, and then it was a Bantam paperback, and then it went out of print. And Universe has a program for getting the book back in print. In other words, the copyright reverts back to the author, and the author then owns the rights and can get it republished somehow. And I was looking around for a new publisher, and it turned out that Universe had a deal with Showtime and with Barnes & Noble.
Okay.
And so they...
Well, there's your distribution right there.
The movie was going to be based on the book. Then they acquired the rights to the book, and so that's what. So it's a kind of a three-way relationship between Universe, Showtime, and Barnes and Noble.
That's actually where I saw the book the first time with the Showtime cover on it.
Yeah.
You know, you've got your distribution there. That's a great distribution agreement with Barnes and Noble, one of the biggest book chains in America.
Yep.
Too, the other thing that Universe does is that they do books on what are called books on demand, which is a very modern idea, which is that you set the book up so you don't publish 45,000 of them or something and put them in a warehouse.
You print what you need when you need it.
Publish on demand. So they don't have to worry about warehouse costs. They just keep pushing the book. When the book comes out, presumably after this show there'll be some sales.
I hope so.
They will print just the right number of them, and they're doing that now for other publishers. I mean, other publishers are doing the same thing. So, and Universe does have a self-publishing arm, but that's just one thing that it does.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't. That's the only thing I was familiar with. That. Do you think your call is? Oh yeah, no, it's back. I'm sorry, that was my producer handing me a slip of paper. I like to read and talk live because we're that professional here.
Scott, I found the combination to the locker with them.
What? Oh yeah. We always joke that we're counting. Chuck helps us count these giant stacks of money that we have that we make off the show.
I have to move around the studio in a wheelbarrow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We've got a wheelbarrow here. We've got so much money. It's awful. All right. Great. I'm going to get back to this, though.
Right.
I think I've got a question from the chat room.
Yeah.
This is from Chris in Atlanta. He asked, in speaking about possession in general, I wonder what Tom's outlook is on items being possessed by demons or spirits. I can understand a person being taken over by a demon, but what does Tom think of a demon taking over a vehicle? He mentions the example of Carrie in the Stephen King novel, or some other inanimate object.
I just can't see how that could happen. I mean, I was a reporter at one time for the New York Daily News, and I covered a case where there were flying objects. I mean, where there was in a house where I never saw it actually happen, but I could see the dent on the wall where something had flown across the room. And there's a similar events take place in the Exorcism that I wrote about. But it has to do with the idea that you can control the movement of objects with your mind, mind over matter. So presumably you could turn on an ignition and shift a car, shift the lever and make a car move. If you believe in that theory of kinetic movement, I mean, and there's some justification for believing that that's possible, but it's about at the edge of reality for me right now. I can't see how it quite could be done, but I think there's a lot of literature on that kind of an idea.
Oh yeah, they even had the show. A friend of ours was on. Josh Warren. He was on a show called Possessed Possessions. I don't know. Did you ever see that, Trent?
No, I sure didn't.
No.
It was on. I think it was on Discovery or one of these Discovery-owned networks. They own like 5 or 6 channels or something. Yeah, it's ungodly.
At least.
And then they don't pay anybody that comes on the show.
Well, they're paired up with New York Times too, so that there are.
They're paired up with New York
Times.
Oh, Discovery. That's right. They've got that channel too. They've got Discovery. It's anyway, past the 200s or something. Go.
About the show, Possessed.
Oh yeah, Possessed Possessions, and then you hear speaking with John Zaffis. He's I don't know if you're familiar with John. He's Ed and Lorraine Warren's nephew. I don't know if you know the name John Zaffis. Tom, are you familiar with him?
No, it doesn't ring a bell.
He's big in the exorcism paranormal world, and he's written a book now. I can't think of the title of it off the top of my head, but something of the dead. Does it sound right? Spirits of the dead. Never mind.
Yeah.
But I was
Maybe.
speaking with John, and John believes that some objects become animated. He's actually got a in his house. He keeps what he calls a paranormal museum, and these are items that he's taken from some of these cases that he's worked on that were possessed at one point in time or did strange things. And I think he's crazy. I wouldn't keep any of that stuff anywhere near
Right.
me. Yeah, I would
your
keep it in my
basement.
basement. I mean, are you insane? It's I think that was a good question though from Chris.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it kind of goes to the theory that if a lot of people sort of believe that this item is going to do something, then maybe it will, just because of all these people like transferring mental energy to the item in question. And then, of course, if you believe in demonic possession and the people are demonically possessed, then that demonic energy could be transferred to the item. I don't know.
Well,
anyway.
The Catholic theology on that, I think, is pretty logical and sensible. The belief is that when you die, you're dead, and if you think you see a ghost, or if you feel you're possessed by something, it's no good. There's an evil aspect to it. That when you die, there's nothing left for you to do but be dead. You can't rise again and all without some kind of evil consequences or evil operation going on. So the Catholic theology is, the basis for their belief is that any spirit, any ghost, anything that says I'm from the dead is an evil entity of some kind.
It's demonic in nature.
Yeah.
That seems like a pretty.
What about the theory?
plausible.
Now, and this is just what I hear from John. He's Roman Catholic. What about the theory? I know his theory is that not all of these things are evil. That some of these ghosts or human hauntings are caused by spirits that are trapped in purgatory.
Well, there's no theology to back it up.
Okay.
That's the problem. I mean, I'm just talking.
No, yeah. No, I don't know the Catholic theology. That's why I'm asking.
But the idea of there's one other possibility that the kids in Majadori and what used to be Yugoslavia who see the Virgin quite regularly. There were 7 or 8 kids. They're now young adults, and that's considered a vision. In other words, you're looking at something that is existing because it's been caused by some divine decision. That you're looking at the Virgin Mary because that's what God wants you to do, but she's not there because she's a ghost or an evil spirit of some kind. But she hasn't been generated by anything other than faith and a great belief in her existence. The other possibility is an hallucination, and an hallucination is nobody sees but you.
Yeah.
And so what you may see in your head, you have no idea where it came from or whether it's good or evil, but it's inside your head. And I'm not going to be able to see it, and other people aren't. But a vision can be seen by other people.
Wow.
Give us a buzz, though, here. 800-960-2289. That's 800-960-2289. Or locally at 336-996-1596. And talk with us and Tom about anything in the movie or anything in the book, if you've read the book, that you would like to discuss. I asked you before, how this has changed your life and your belief system. How do you feel about the actual, like I said, demonic possession? Do you feel that they're really demons from hell, or do you feel is it more of a metaphorical kind of?
Well, I'll tell you the way it changed my life the most, I think, or the significant change in my life from the book was it made me really believe in evil. That evil is as real as gravity. That it's a real phenomenon in our world, and that when it's easier for us to deal with good than with evil, we walk away from evil. We don't want to touch it, and so we don't know much about it. I talked to a Jesuit who teaches a course in evil, and I said, well, how do you how do you get to the students about what evil is? And he says, I just tell them that everyone eventually sometime in his or her life has the experience of meeting someone and feeling the evil of that person. And I've had that experience, but I never realized that I was really dealing with something that to me was real, that evil is real. And I came away from the book and the research I had done on it and all with that feeling.
Huh. So
the real existence of evil. There are a couple of psychiatrists who will go to the edge of that and say that there is an existence of evil. It's a phenomenon that you have to face the existence of. And there, when I was working on the book, I also came across the phenomenon of people saying the devil made me do it.
Okay.
And there have been several criminal cases, particularly murder, where the accused has said the devil made me do it. It has never got into court. No judge has really accepted it as an honest plea.
Well, you know, there was the case. I remember reading this in law school. Actually, we make a joke of it. You can actually find it on the internet if you go to Google. And I can't remember what you need to type, but a guy basically tried to sue the devil in federal district court, and basically the judge wrote an opinion on it and said, well, first of all, we would have to decide whether or not we had jurisdiction, and we don't think our jurisdiction extends to the bounds of hell.
With all the lawyers there, Scott.
Yeah, yeah, I know, right? Imagine that. But
there was a case in Connecticut where a man was stabbed to death, and the accused pleaded guilty and told his lawyer that he had been seized by a demon, that he was not under control, and he had stabbed the guy, who turned out to be a love rival. I mean, they were both in love with the same girl.
Ooh.
And
not anymore.
Yeah. But the lawyer held a press conference and said that, and tried to get it into court, but they wouldn't take it. I mean, it's either you plead guilty or not guilty. And as I recall the case, he pleaded guilty to manslaughter.
I would try the insanity
defense.
So
the whole issue never really entered the courtroom.
Yeah.
I would try insanity, although I think it works, 2% of the time, if that.
Yeah.
There's Michael Hayes.
Michael Hayes did this case.
In North Carolina.
In North Carolina, he killed a lot of people. It was on 2020.
Yeah. I mean, not more than
150.
Yeah. About 5 miles from where Scott and I lived.
Yeah, at the time, and we were kids, but he had shot what was it, like
half a dozen people.
Yeah.
And he said he was possessed by a demon. He'd stopped him.
He said he was shooting.
He saw shooting demons. That's
and
right.
He saw them and he was shooting them.
Well, he stopped one lady from his church and he didn't shoot her. He let her pass, and then the next car came up and he's just standing out there in the middle of the road with a shotgun.
Yeah.
And he's in the psychiatric institution right now.
He's up for
Dix.
parole, or?
They keep knocking it down every time it comes. He's never getting out of there. You know that.
I wonder if anybody really has looked into it from a psychological standpoint or psychiatric standpoint.
Yeah, it's I know there's a lot of material out there.
Yeah, certainly.
But
I mean, that kind of.
go ahead.
Well, I mean, that kind of argues the case a little bit. Not so much of demonic possession, but demonic manipulation. And it seems to me that in the world, for assuming that the devil is real, and I believe he is, it would seem to me that it would much more further his evil causes than to get like a normal looking guy and have him act normal, and everything like that, but quietly whisper to do awful things. You see what I'm saying? And where he still has the guise of normalcy rather than just possess them outright and make a big deal about it. It seems like, the thing I keep on saying, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was to convince the world he didn't exist. What do you think about that?
Well, you got to start with, I don't really figure that there's a devil.
Okay.
Okay, now we're getting down to something interesting. Okay.
I do believe that there are elements to existence we don't understand, and if you want to make part of that God and another part of that the devil, then you can, maybe you can build a world where that makes sense.
It's funny, Tom.
If you go to the idea of the fall of Lucifer, and that Lucifer was thrown out from heaven and started essentially another kind of universe. I mean, you can go on and on down that track. I just don't believe it because I don't have the evidence or the faith, for that matter.
Well, now the priests that you were friends with, were these men, did they feel the same way? I know a lot of priests today feel that there is no real devil itself, but there's evil. Did they feel the same way, or can you speak for them on that? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, if you could find, certainly you could find clergymen and priests or rabbis or imams or whatever who will find it will go right along the spectrum of either believing in the devil or believing that there's some cause for evil, and then people just saying, hey, we've got free will, you can be good or evil. But I don't think that the devil is as much a character in religion now as he was 2 centuries ago, say. What do you think that is?
I think it is much more of a fundamental belief rather than a mainstream belief.
It's interesting. Usually, as people get older, they tend to find religion more and more. We were speaking with Eileen Dietz. I don't know if you know the name. She played in the Exorcist film, and she did a lot of the scenes that people attribute to what's her name? Help me out, guys. Linda Blair. Thank you.
Linda Blair.
Yeah, she did a lot of those scenes because she was older at the time. And I asked her, I said, well, she's like, well, I've become more of a religious person now. She said, as you get older, you tend to find religion. I said, that's true. That's a true statement. As you do get older, you tend to seek religion. Do you consider yourself any part of any organized religion, or are you just kind of waiting and seeing?
I'm a Unitarian, which, the old story is that you die and you come to a crossroad, and one road goes to heaven, the other goes to a discussion of heaven, and you go to the discussion.
Wow.
All right.
That's awesome.
You know what? I'm gonna have to save that and use that for a soundbite. Well, now I've got another question. This boy that they call in the movie, they call him Robbie. I'm sure that's not his real name, or R, however you want to say it.
Right.
Was now his family in the film, it portrays them as being not really a very religious family, and you say now that he's a converted Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
Was he as a child, was he a religious child or what?
The family was Lutheran.
Okay.
And
not anymore.
Father and mother attended a Lutheran church, but one of the let's see, it would have been I'm fairly sure it's the mother was brought up Catholic, but she was not attending Catholic church at the time that the boy started suffering from whatever it was he was suffering from. And so they went to their Lutheran minister, and it so happened that minister was a believer in at that time of extraterrestrial, or not extra, I can't think of it, mind over matter, and the idea that the boy could have been faking it, that he could have had the power to make things move around and all.
Well, like a telekinesis or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And possibly even telepathic and so on. And the minister spent a night with him and watched all kinds of strange things happen, in which the bed moved and the chair in which the boy was sitting moved.
Yeah.
And so at the end of that experience, the minister said that you should take him to a priest because the Catholics understand this. And that was almost like taking religion and putting it into a little capsule, because Luther when he starts the Reformation and goes off into what will become Protestantism, gets rid of exorcism as a concept. It doesn't exist as a concept in almost all Protestant religions. And that's the doing of Luther, the Lutheran Church. So here's a Lutheran minister saying, for this kind of strange event, you have to go to a Catholic priest. So the mother and father went to a priest, and the priest, who had no experience in exorcism, but he did know that he had to get permission from the Archbishop of Washington. This was all happening in Maryland. He went to that Archbishop, and again, it so happened that the Archbishop had no pastoral experience, had never dealt with this before, and treated it more or less as, okay, go do it, without any real good, solid thinking about it. The priest then takes the boy, puts him in Georgetown Hospital under an assumed name, straps him to a bed, and starts an exorcism. And the boy reaches under the bed, breaks off a piece of a bed spring, and stabs the priest in the arm. And
is that real? Did that actually happen?
Yeah, that was the first exorcism.
Wow.
And that ends, of course. I mean, the priest was shocked and ended the exorcism.
Now, did that priest, is that the point where he just said, I'm not going to deal with this anymore personally?
Well, the priest, this gets to be a little bit of a controversy in itself. The priest, according to some people, then disappeared for a period of time and then came back and had a scar from his wrist to his elbow. Other people say, no, he kept performing Mass and never mentioned that anything like this had happened. But the story that my research indicates, the family had relatives in St. Louis. They were living in a small town in Maryland. They had relatives in St. Louis. It was 1949, and they decided that they didn't know what to do. The boy was having a lot of trouble in school. The desk was moving around in the schoolroom. He said he had nothing to do with it. Objects were moving around in the house, and they knew something terrible was going on, but they didn't know what it was. And then one morning, he lets out a scream, and on his body, whether it's on his chest or his arm, isn't clear, the word St. Louis appears. And so the mother says, does this mean we should go to St. Louis? And again, according to what she later tells the Jesuits about this, the word yes appears.
Tom, I hate to cut you off. We're going to have to take a short break, though. It's the top of the hour. We'll be right back on World of the Unexplained after this.
See you in a bit.
And we're back with Thomas Allen. Please call in 800-960-2289, 800-960-2289. We promise we'll answer the phone this time, and locally 336-996-1596. But go ahead and give us a call, and Tom will be more than happy to answer any of your questions. Now, during the break, we were talking, and Tom was telling us that you can purchase a copy of this book, Possessed, at his website, which is www.tballen.com. And you can just click on My Works, and there's a bunch of selected books here.
That's with
Scroll
two L's.
Down. Yeah, that's two L's. That's tballen.com. And you can actually get that from our website, too. If you go to worldoftheunexplained.com and click on Guests, it'll take you to his website. And you can actually order that right there online. If you want the actual page it's on www.tballen.com/work, the number 2.htm. That'll take you right to the page. Click on the book in the top left-hand corner, and you'll be able to purchase your copy of that. Now, going back to what we were talking about the kid, about Robbie being,
right,
Christian or not.
Well, you were talking about how the word St. Louis rose up on his skin, and then take it from there.
So the family decided that they would go to St. Louis, and they stayed at a family's house, and the family got very nervous about the way the boy was behaving and about the various things that were happening at that time. So there was another family member which was more sympathetic. They went to that family's house, and it so happened that he had a cousin who was a little older than he was. She was going to St. Louis University, a Jesuit university, and she told the Jesuit teacher that she was very troubled by what seemed to be happening with her cousin, and she told him that there were strange noises in the house, pieces of furniture were moving around. He seemed half the time he seemed like a regular little boy, and the other time he seemed very troubled. So the Jesuit she talked to went to Father Bowden, who was
Tom, I hate to interrupt you. We've got a caller for you, though.
Oh, okay. Hello?
Carla, what's your name? Where are you from? What's your question?
Hello, this is Terry from Virginia Beach.
Hi. Terry?
Yeah, what you guys are talking about, it sounds like personal responsibility is not taken into account. I would like to know what the author feels about personal responsibility. I'll hang up and take your call off the air. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks so much, Terry.
Well, you're talking about a 13-year-old kid who seems to be greatly troubled by something that's going on in his mind, and I don't think that there's any personal responsibility involved. The thinking on this by theologians and the Exorcist himself was that the boy may have been exposed to some kind of evil and didn't know how to handle it, and started to feel that the boy was guilty of something and he didn't know what it was. And he was a confused little boy who really believed that something was going on that he didn't know what it was. And I don't see where that has anything to do with personal responsibility. I think it has to do with responding to an event that you had no control over. And he's a 13-year-old kid. It's not that he is mature or knows how to handle.
Oh God, you got all kinds of things you can't get control over at 13. Let me tell you. What happened to this priest though? That I want to go back. I hate to back up like that, but what happened to this priest who had gotten himself cut with a bed spring?
Well, with a priest who responded, Father Bowden, went to the house, and he was operating again under the theology that said that if you are going to be possessed, or not if you're going to, that there's a three-stage process, which starts with the place that you happen to live or your place of work or your place of worship. Some presence comes to that area, and then there might be something that would be happening between you and that place. I mean, there would be objects flying or what seemed to be happening in his case. And then finally, the ultimate event is that the demon gets inside you and tries to take over your existence. And the reason the demon is doing this is because it will. You're like a staked down goat. You're attracting. The demon wants a priest to come so the demon can go after the priest, because the priest is a better quarry than a 13-year-old kid.
Oh, definitely.
That's the thinking behind it.
Well,
that would make sense.
When Father Bowden comes into the house, he blesses the house. He attempts to exorcise the house, and there was a procedure for that. And when he does that, things start to get even worse, and that's almost an indication that something's about to happen. And sure enough, what starts to the boy is showing slightly different symptoms. He's aggressive. He's cursing. He's spitting. He's urinating. He's being an incredibly nasty human being. And then during the day, he's just an ordinary kid. He plays Monopoly. He plays catch with his father. He has an ordinary life in the daytime, but at night, he goes to bed as an ordinary little boy, and then sometime in the night, he starts to act out, and that's when they started performing the exorcism. They felt he was truly possessed.
Now, how real is the part in the beginning of the film where he's doing the things with his grandma, the automatic writing or whatever it is they're doing?
Yeah. That was, again, according to my research and according to the Jesuits, the one Jesuit I talked to, who was there, his grandmother. He lived with his grandmother, but an aunt came to the house and visited them. She was from St. Louis, and I was able to learn her name. I went to the Hall of Records in St. Louis, and I found when she had died. She died about a month or so before a lot of this started, and there's some indication that the boy attempted to reach her through a Ouija board. She was a great devotee of the Ouija board. She was also a spiritualist, and the spiritualist really does believe that you can communicate with the dead. So there's some belief that what the boy was doing was attempting to reach his aunt through the Ouija board when things started going haywire. And so I started looking at the Ouija board. I mean, a lot of strange things happen with Ouija boards.
Oh yeah, that's an invitation to play with evil.
Right,
basically.
Well, it's at least an invitation to play with your subconscious.
Oh yeah, that too.
Yeah.
I would like to develop one with some kind of radio control to freak people out. Teach your kids at a young age not to mess with them.
Yeah, Ouija
install
board.
Speakers in the walls in the bedrooms.
Oh my gosh!
We are coming for you. That'll keep your kids away from those Ouija boards forever, man.
As well they should. You're messing with stuff you don't need to be.
800-960-2289. 800-960-2289. Call in, speak with Tom Allen about his book Possessed. 336-996-1596 is a local number. Both of these numbers are available on the front page of worldoftheunexplained.com, which I'm going to mention also. If you guys will go there and vote, I've got a little poll at the top. I'm thinking about writing this book, and I want you guys to give me an idea if it's not on exorcism or anything like that, but I'm thinking about writing a book, and I want to know if you guys will be interested in buying it. So, or just be interested in it, period. I'm going to write it anyway regardless, but I've got a poll up there and no one's answered. I've had like 4 people answer.
Well, I mean, it's only been up there.
The other poll's got like 200 and some responses or something. This has like 4. So obviously.
Where are you in it? What's the?
I'm sorry.
What you say you're? Well, I just wondering what status you're in.
Oh, I'm in the preparation and planning status.
Yeah.
I've got some ideas. I'm just trying to get organized right now.
Actually, more than one. Those that
but all the crap that I see put out there by writers every day, even some of them that come to our show. Not you, Tom. You're an excellent writer. But no. I'm just saying. He is an excellent writer. No, some of the you know what I'm talking about, Tom. You've read some of this crap.
You're one of the good ones, man.
You've read some of this stuff, though. I mean, really, I'm being honest, especially the self-published stuff. Oh my God! But you've read it. I mean, not only do they have no handle on grammar, they have no handle on sentence construction.
No handle on.
They have no handle on telling a story or characterization, dialogue. Oh my God!
Anyway.
It's awful. I mean, it's just awful.
Just an explosive rant about.
I'm surprised they even know how to use a quotation mark or a oh God, my thing's apostrophes. I'm like an apostrophe freak, man. I get so nutsed out when people, when I wrote for the college paper, man, it would just bother me. And when I was an editor later, it would bug me to death. You would see these kids come in. These are, college juniors and seniors, don't know the difference between ITS and IT apostrophe.
I mean, that's like one of the fundamental rules.
All the time now.
I mean, didn't we learn this in 3rd grade?
Let's not even start with semicolons and colons.
God. Oh yeah. I'm bad about that too. Yeah. Semicolons. My God, people.
I know you are, Scott.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. But yeah, I'm in the planning and preparation stages. We've got another question for you in our chat room, though.
Sure.
And this is also from Terry, who just called in a minute ago. Do you think that all spirits are demons, or can some souls linger but not be evil?
Wait a minute. All demons what?
Do you think that all spirits are demons, or can some souls linger but not be evil? I guess they're asking if.
I believe that every spirit I've heard of and every ghost that I've heard of is an extension from somebody's mind. It's either an hallucination that was generated by one or more persons, or it's something that's so beyond our understanding that we're going to have to practically be different human beings to understand what's going on. I mean, I've got a great collection of ghost stories, and I love ghost stories, but I don't really believe that there is such a thing as a ghost. I believe there's something, but I don't know if we've got the right label for it, and I don't think we've got the right appreciation of studying it. I mean, no reputable scientist or philosopher really wants to study the supernatural. They run in terror away from it.
Oh yeah.
And so we aren't equipped to understand that. I mean, imagine a bunch of scientists getting together at a Congress and voting on it the way they voted about Pluto. I mean, there's
it's no longer a planet.
Nation by the intellectual community to want to get anywhere near this.
Everything you know is wrong. Pluto is no longer a planet, kids.
My very educated mother just served S9.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole thing is thrown to pieces. Tom, do you believe then maybe ghosts could possibly be lingering psychic energy from someone who's already passed?
Yeah, I think there's that. I mean, I my wife's a potter, and I've always had this idea that you could take a pot that had been in a Stone Age cave, and you could somehow work a needle or in an amplifier of some kind, and you could hear the grunts of the guy who made that pot as he spun it around on a wheel.
Huh.
She thinks I'm nuts, but I think that there must be ways to capture some of the errant energy that's sort of floating around.
Yeah.
But again, I don't think you're not going to get your PhD from MIT by saying I want to study telekinesis.
And why not? No.
Well, I mean,
seriously, why not?
The way of the world, yeah.
Well, I don't know. I think, psychology for so many years took the backseat to real science, or so they said. And then, later on, it finally got its notoriety and came out to be, some people really don't accept. It's kind of like, I guess, chiropractors. It's like, are they real doctors? Yeah. Are they not? But
that might produce a couple of phone calls.
Yeah, 800-960-2289. You should have heard me. Should have heard me last week. Oh God,
oh, man.
Got on that rant about the hotel. Oh, never mind. I'm not even going to talk about it.
Let's not
I cannot believe we didn't get any phone calls over that either. I'm surprised.
I'm pretty amazed.
But
that was pretty racy stuff, Scott.
But do you think it's ever, Tom? Do you think it's ever going to be accepted that this ghost hunting idea, this study of the supernatural?
I'm right there and right near where you are. Duke University had Dr. Rhine.
Yeah, Rhine Research Center.
Right on the campus where they were studying extrasensory perception.
We've actually been there, and we've actually had Dr. Sally Rhine Feather, his daughter, on our show with her new book on ESP.
We actually took some tests down there.
And I found out I wasn't psychic at all, and Trent apparently was.
A little bit. A little bit.
I thought Dr. Rhine was coming close to saying there's a scientific possibility here.
Yeah.
And he was being listened to, and then sort of the winds shifted, and he was he was no longer accepted by anything in the scientific establishment, and it no longer was considered part of Duke University.
Oh. Yeah, I know it's true. I know it is. It is.
And I think that itself, I think, is a really interesting story that somebody ought to do. Just exactly how that came about.
Well, there you go. There's a new book for you right there. We'll have you back on. Well, I had another. Go ahead, Trent. If you had something, go. For
it. I'm backing up way back, but
I was going to back up too. So go ahead.
Okay. When the marks showed up on the child's skin, where it said St. Louis. And then the word yes. That's very interesting, because if the child was being manipulated or being courted by evil forces, then why would it produce marks on its skin that would send it to a place where the evil would be, eliminated and banished? I mean, if that obviously doesn't seem to be the case. I mean,
I don't know. It's an intriguing question. I, on one hand, you want to see two people being drawn together in the fate of one of them depending on his meeting the second. I mean, that's exactly what happened with Father Bowder. I mean, here's a kid who is suffering in Maryland, and here's a priest in St. Louis, and they are brought together in some strange fashion. There's no question that they're being brought together is an odd set of facts. And Father Bowdern himself had never performed an exorcism. He was enough of a Jesuit so he would be even suspicious of the whole concept of exorcism. And here's a little kid in Maryland, and somehow they're drawn together. Now, if you look at what drew them together, it's sort of the demon drew them together. Now, was this all a big plot of the demon to reach Father Bowdern? You could make a case out of that, I suppose. Because there is some belief in that's the real motivation of the demon.
It wasn't the child; it was the priest.
He doesn't care about the person he seems to be possessing. He's after the greater soul, who is going to be the exorcist. Because again, going back to Catholic theology, the theory of the exorcist has to be absolutely pure and strong and a great moral person in order to even conduct an exorcism. And I mean, Bowdern he was a pillar. The guy was, he had been a chaplain in the war. He got a Distinguished Service Cross. He was a tough guy and a man of high moral standards, great integrity, and yet, a real human being who knew his way around people. So in some sense, he was a great target for someone who was trying to perform evil.
Now, did he have a problem with the drink? It's, in the movie they kind of make that. They kind of make that slight. Yeah, and that's why I was wondering. I always say never trust a priest that doesn't drink, but it's
no. I mean, that was, and the whole thing. They did make a lot more out of his war experience. His war experience was absolutely sealed. I mean, he never talked about it. I got a little indication from a few people that he was a pretty heroic guy. As it turned out, he was in an area, China, Burma, India theater of World War II, where there wasn't a great deal of coverage. I mean, Europe is being covered by Time and Life magazine and all the rest, and the Pacific War focuses on General MacArthur, but there's a kind of backwater, which was the China, Burma, India theater that was, and that's where he was. So it's very hard to even get combat information out of there. I mean, to find out exactly what it was that he did. But he comes home, doesn't tell anybody about it, but people pick up little bits and pieces that he was a very heroic guy. There's also a belief, or not a belief, but there's a situation in the Jesuits where certain Jesuits are singled out as sort of Jesuits. I mean, they're the creme de menthe. They're absolutely the best in the business, and they get that accolade, and then it's put to work. Only a Jesuit who is absolutely top drawer can teach theology, can run an institution like a university.
Yeah.
And he was in that caliber. So, I mean, to go after him, if you if you were a working devil, it would be quite an accomplishment.
Quite a prize.
You know.
What about the scene, the civil rights scene where he like I said, it's been a while since.
There was truth to that.
Okay.
You know, what was happening was the St. Louis schools, the public schools, had not yet been integrated, and Archbishop, later Cardinal Cushing, again a very tough guy and a man of great integrity, said, okay, I'm going to integrate the Catholic school system in St. Louis, in the Diocese of St. Louis.
Uh-huh.
And he said that anybody who stands in the way or thwarts it in any way will be excommunicated. I mean, a really incredible decision. And right in the middle of that, some priest comes in and says, shall we perform, I want to perform an exorcism. And so he didn't need this on his plate. And that's why the whole thing became very secretive. There was no, there's no press release on it. But what happened was the boy came back to Maryland, and he was, was cured. And a priest in the Archdiocese of Washington, who knew about the first exorcism, which had failed, had further heard about something going on in St. Louis. And a report was given to the Archdiocese of Washington, and one of the priests called a guy who was a reporter on the Washington Evening Star, and that they broke a story saying that a boy here, a Maryland boy, they didn't identify him, had been exorcised, and they explained what exorcism was. Then the Washington Post came out with the story, and the two papers had 3 or 4 stories about it. And again, the boy was not identified, the exorcist was not identified, and William Blatty was a student at Georgetown University at the time, and he read the papers and read the story and filed it away. The Jesuits in Georgetown also talked about it because it became pretty well known in the Jesuit grapevine. So Blatty...
Tom, I got to cut you off again. I've got to cut you off again here.
Oh, okay.
We're going to our last break of the night, 800-960-2289. Tom Allen here on World of the Unexplained. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, this is Prophet Yahweh, Master UFO Caller. You are listening to World of the Unexplained.
And we're back to World of the Unexplained. Tom Allen. Continue... Oh, I'm sorry. Right. To talk to Tom... 1-800-960-2289 or 336-996-1596. And once again, don't forget about the chat room.
And the numbers work now. You can call us, I promise.
They certainly do.
We'll answer.
Okay, Tom, go ahead. What you're talking about, the exorcism has sort of made headlines, so to speak.
Oh, yeah. Well, what happened was there were the two Washington newspapers came out with stories that did not identify the boy or the exorcism or the exorcist, talking about the fact that there had been a successful exorcism in St. Louis with someone who had been from Maryland, and William Blatty was in Georgetown University in Washington at that time. He read the stories, put the clippings away, and started thinking years later of writing a book about it. And he got in touch with the exorcist, Father Bowdern, and Father Bowdern said he couldn't help him because he had sworn to secrecy about it. And but he said, "I'll tell you one thing." In the letter, which I've seen a copy of. He said, "I'll tell you, it was the real thing." Wow. So Blatty then wrote it, and at the request of Father Bowdern, he did not identify not only didn't identify the boy, but made the boy a girl. So in the movie, the person who is being exorcised is a girl. As it so happens, that's much more frequent in the study of exorcism, but most exorcisms take place on the young women. You can think of the Salem witch trials, for instance.
I was actually thinking of, I don't know if you've seen the film The Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Yeah.
Now, they based that off of, they changed a lot of things, Hollywood license.
Of course.
But they based that off of some true story that happened, I think, in the 70s in Germany, if I'm correct in thinking on that.
Yeah.
What did you think of that film?
I think there's the whole idea of, I think that the idea of witchcraft, the belief that women automatically become the target or the vessel of evil and of demons goes back an awfully long time. And I think it was picking up on this old idea. But that's why I said that the use of a girl as the character in the movie, in the fictionalization of the exorcism, was truer to history.
Yeah.
Because that's where most of the recorded exorcisms take place. It's usually a woman, young woman, or a girl.
Now, did you get a chance to meet with and speak with William Peter Blatty after you started your research?
Yeah, the strange thing was that when I started working on the book, my editor said, "Don't get in touch with him," because there had been a lot of litigation about the second and third exorcism films.
Yeah, somebody should have sued over that second one, man. It was rotten.
And so they just didn't want to have him, get involved with any kind of litigation with the publisher, which was Doubleday. So I didn't get in touch with him, and years passed, and I got involved with that Showtime piece, and I still didn't get in touch with him. And then there was a documentary called Grip of Evil, where William Friedkin, who was the director of the movie, spoke. But again, nobody could get Blatty to talk. Well, I recently, within the last few months, I met Blatty, and we spent a lot of time together just going over the whole thing. He is, I can't speak for him, but he believed what Father Bowdern said, that it was the real thing.
Wow.
And it really, affected his life. I mean,
he wrote Legion, I believe is the name of the book. It was the third Exorcist movie with George C. Scott. And I guess that was just a fictional work. I don't think that was based off anything that I don't know. I may be wrong.
Well, he had nothing to do with either of the other two films.
Oh, he didn't have anything to do at all with the other two films.
No, his only real involvement was with the first movie, and the other ones, for my money, just aren't comparable.
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not.
They just weren't any. They just weren't any good.
I thought the third one was okay. It was
better than the second one.
The second one was awful.
Yeah.
And the new one was actually. I thought the new one was actually decent. The prequel that they put out, it was decent.
Oh, the prequel one, I never saw it.
Whatever you do, don't see the one that everyone, what was it, the one that was started before that they finally released later? It's awful.
Yeah,
talking about, Scott?
And there were actually sort of two versions made.
Yeah,
that's right.
Is it,
It pretty much
like
finished
such a
the
mess.
entire
I
film,
just
too.
didn't want to use up any time again.
Oh.
Do what? I'm sorry? I'm sorry?
No, I said it seemed like it was such a mess. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
that I just didn't want to bother seeing it.
Yeah.
It's understandable.
It's okay. If you get the right one, it's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, they even fired the director, and I mean, they reshot everything.
Oh,
I mean,
It's basically two different films. In fact, I heard that on the DVD they were going to release it as two different films.
Oh, God, yeah.
Well,
who wants that? It was bad. It was really bad.
Well, we gotta what we got there? About 18 minutes or something like that.
We're good. We're good on time.
Okay. Tom, I really don't want to digress, but I'm kind of curious. What other kind of projects have you worked on? Are there any kind of projects that you worked on that are of this caliber, supernaturally or paranormally speaking?
Well, I'm a freelance writer, and I write what interests me. That interested me greatly, of course, and I wrote a book about it, but I didn't stay in that world, and I'm more interested in writing the whole idea of telling a story, narrative nonfiction, and so I've written on many subjects, military subjects, espionage. I wrote a kids book, which, for young adults, 10 to 14, on George Washington as a spy master, how he ran intelligence in the Revolution. With Paul Dixon, I wrote The Bonus Army, which came out last year, and is in paperback, and there was a PBS documentary on it, and there's a movie. We sold the movie option. I don't know if there'll ever be a movie. I just finished a book on Harriet Tubman as a spy in the Civil War.
Oh, wow.
And I'm working on a book now. I just started working on a book about the Tories of the American Revolution.
Right. They can also pick those up with at your website, tballen.com. And you can, if you missed that, you can go to our website, worldoftheunexplained.com, and you'll see a link on the guest page.
Thank you for that.
Hey, no problem.
Yep. Website.
We hope that you can definitely pick up a few new fans here, hopefully.
Right.
But or at least
you know, I really just, if you wanted to digress a little bit about narrative nonfiction,
sure.
The idea is to really tell the story. I mean, really tell and document it, and not make anything up. And I think we're going through a period now where it's very hard to tell the difference between fiction and nonfiction in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
And I always want to have sources for anything that I write, and I keep it nonfiction. Not making up dialogue, not making up scenes, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, but I try to use the techniques that are been known for a long, long time. I mean, we all know how to just tell a story. You tell it chronologically. You imagine you're sitting around a campfire and you want to tell a story. It's an old human tradition. So that's pretty much what I do for a living.
Well, that's wonderful that you've been able to do something that you love like that for and actually make a living doing it. That's a wonderful
really
thing.
Do. Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing.
But in this book was certainly special because I felt that I was at the edge of something that I didn't want to go any further than the edge. I had one particular time I was writing the book, and I was in a motel. I was interviewing someone some distance from my home, and so I had spending a couple of nights in a motel with a laptop, and I was writing, and I felt that I could go. It's the phrase that ran through my mind at the time of going over the edge. That I could go over the edge, and that on the other side of the edge was going to be interesting stuff. But I felt pulled back by the realization that I wanted to keep the story straight. I wanted it to be absolutely factual. But I did have that flash of feeling that I could let myself go, and it would go off into some other dimension or some other direction, and that I would lose control of.
Did you ever, when you were writing the book, did you ever have times where you felt like somebody was watching you, where you felt, I mean, honestly, where you felt like a creepy,
spooky things?
Yeah, like you were like, ooh, I mean.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Did you ever have any nightmares when you were writing the book?
But only in that book.
Only that, yeah. Huh. That's really odd. Do you remember what scenes you were in, or what point in the book you were at? Anything stick out?
Well, I had a priest had had written a thesis on evil that had been published in Rome in English, but it had never been published in the United States. And there was only one. He only had one copy of it, and he said, I said, would you please let me read it? And he said, well, you must get it back the following day. And he let me. He said I could Xerox some pages from it, but it was formidable. It was 400 pages or so.
Ooh.
I'd written.
Wow.
and I was reading that and taking notes from it onto my laptop, and that's when it happened. That's when I started feeling that I was at the edge of something.
Well, you never saw anything or heard anything or had any kind of strange experience other than a feeling, I'm assuming.
Yeah. It wasn't a matter of seeing or feeling. It was just that feeling. That's why I say I think that a lot of what we call ghosts and spirits and all are inside our heads, and they're very, very real. I mean, an idea is real.
Yeah.
And a memory is real. And so it's at least real at that level. I mean, inside our heads are real concepts, and one could be, a shadow or a movement of a curtain or something you can make into a ghost or a spirit or somebody watching you. And that's what I think I meant by edge. That if you let I can't use my imagination that much in terms of working on the kind of books that I do.
Uh-huh.
And so I can't let my imagination run wild. My son can. He's a science fiction writer. He produces incredible science fiction stories because he can let his mind go off.
Does your son have a website as well?
Yeah, that's right.
What is your son's website?
R for Roger, rmallen.net.
All right. Yeah. We'll put that up in the chat room.
Yeah, I've also got a reference to him on my own website.
Okay.
But that's what I mean. I think if you start to go down that trail, you may have an interesting experience, and it may even produce an interesting book. But it won't be a book that's absolutely solidly nonfiction. And that's where I am, is nonfiction.
Okay. Are you planning on writing some fiction books at some point in time?
I've written a couple of fictions down through the years, but I've thought about it, but I feel at this point that I'd have to really develop a whole set of tools that I don't know if they're there in the toolbox or not.
Gotcha.
Do you think you're ever going to dabble once again in the world of paranormal topics?
If a good story comes along, sure.
Fair enough.
I had one at one point. I had a multiple personality idea that I did a lot of work on. I worked with the people who had been involved, and I couldn't get anybody interested in the story.
Huh.
Because multiple personalities have sort of come and gone. They've been pretty much shot down. They'll probably make a comeback,
Everything.
Like, coffee's good for you, coffee's bad for you, coffee's good for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything swings around.
But that was the only one that I've really fooled with.
Well, Tom, it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you very much for
any final words. I'll give you the last 2 minutes here.
Well, I just think that it's there's a lot of stories out there that we just have to open our minds to, but we can't let our minds go wild. That's all.
Oh.
Well, fair enough.
Well, like I said, thank you so much for coming on the show. We do appreciate it. It's been a wonderful experience.
It's been a pleasure, Tom. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Please come back sometime.
Yep.
All right. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that was Tom Allen.
Yep.
That was pretty good.
Oh, totally.
That's pretty good.